Oh, that is a good question. Let's see if District Attorney Janet Difiore will get on this phone call with us.
well, one day we're going to have you back.
Let's see if she'll have a sit-down debate. Let's see if she'll even answer questions from the community that elected her and keeps her in office.
Right.
She allegedly had a grand jury investigation. I don't know if it was an investigation, but she got an indictment against both of those two officers for perjury, for falsely lying on their affidavits to get the either search warrant or arrest warrant to enable them to have the power to break into Dario Tenya's apartment. So they committed perjury in the affidavit. The officer that signed the affidavit is still on the job. The other officer was fired. Why is that?
Right.
I mean, these are questions that need to be answered. But most critically, the question that needs to be put to Janet Difiore, and I have put it to her, is where's the grand jury investigation into the death of Dario Tenya?
Right.
So she allegedly held a grand jury investigation into the perjured affidavits by Detective Christian Koch and the police officer, his partner, and they both got indicted for felony perjury and official misconduct. They were both suspended. One was fired, one was not. But what did that investigation include? An investigation into the death of Dario Tenya? Where is that investigation? It is my belief and my understanding, and when I was an assistant district attorney in the Homicide Bureau, every death of a human being in the custody of police had to be put in the grand jury. And whether the DA controlled the grand jury or not, they had to hold a grand jury investigation into the death of a person in police custody. Where's the investigation on Dario Tenya?
Good question.
And I could tell you it's no secret, it's not privileged. The medical examiner that did the autopsy on Dario Tenya told me outright when I asked him, Dario Tenya died in March of 2014. Why don't you have a cause of death on your autopsy? Why haven't you issued the autopsy to the family? Which I was retained by the sister. The sister paid for the funeral. The sister wanted the autopsy, wanted to know how her brother died. So the medical examiner assigned that autopsy, specifically spoke to me and said that he hadn't concluded the cause of death because first he said he was advised that it was a suicide. Well, he wouldn't tell me who advised him it was a suicide. So I said to him, was there a suicide note? He said, no, not everyone leaves a suicide note. Okay, did you speak to the family? Did you speak to his friends? Did you speak to anybody? Because medical examiners have investigators working for them.
Okay.
So how can you conclude it was suicide? So he told me, yes, I had a problem with that, and that's why I did not conclude it was a suicide, because, and I'm quoting him, nobody jumps backwards out a fourth-story window to commit suicide.
Right, he fell on his back. Right.
Amazing. Amazing.
But didn't they after ruling it
it's hard for me to hear you.
After rule, didn't they change the ruling after the officers were indicted?
That is the interesting question, which is unbelievable. First of all, I asked him to have a meeting with the family and myself and discuss this, because there's no way the family says this man committed suicide. So he said he would speak to his chief medical examiner and to call back the next morning. Then, when I called back, he said she was not available, and he's already labeled it a suicide. So I said, how could you label it from yesterday till today a suicide, when yesterday you told me there's no way it's a suicide because no one jumps backwards out a fourth-story window to commit suicide? He told me he was directed by his chief to label it a suicide. So I asked for a meeting with his chief. So he told me to call back the next day. The next day he got on the phone and said, there's nothing you could do about it, and my chief is out for the day at meetings. So the next thing you know, which they never told us, when we got the official final report, within days of the grand jury indictment of the 2 police for perjury, nothing to do with the death, the chief medical examiner crossed out, put one line through suicide, put the date 10/14/14, October 14, 2014, and changed it to circumstances undetermined.
Really?
So I say to the Justice Department, we need to investigate the medical examiner's office. We need to investigate the connection between the district attorney's office and the medical examiner's office and the police department.
These are some crazy times we're living in.
That's where we're at now. I have asked the Justice Department to investigate the medical examiner's office, the district attorney's office, and the death homicide of Dario Tenya, because he didn't jump out the window backwards to commit suicide, and they themselves, the ME's office, the chief, she's the acting chief, crossed out suicide and put down undetermined circumstances.
Amazing.
These are some
So
crazy
you can't
times.
even
We have a right-handed.
trust the medical examiner's office with your loved ones if